Welcome to Breadcrumbs. This is the prophetic journal of a girl who's more than happy to eat the crumbs off the master's table. If you're like me, then listen and be encouraged, that even in the whispers and mere shadows, our God still speaks, and he has a lot to say. I must admit it's with some fear and trembling that I dare speak of Israel. But I must, because he is. I'm going to give you a little context. I was raised in a Reformed Presbyterian church that taught Calvinistic replacement theology, led by a pastor who was a Jewish convert from the Bronx. What a mystery all of that is. And to make it more mysterious still, this man who I absolutely adored, who in many ways I owe the most to in terms of my spiritual anchoring. He would throw out these comments sometimes that he thought there would be a day where the Jewish people would come to God in great numbers. They'd come back in droves. And he said it with a kind of wistfulness. And that's when I realized he didn't really fit the mold that he was in. He was a kind of hybrid. He applied the same kind of fierce allegiance to his newer Reformed faith as he did to his childhood Jewish one. He told us stories of how he would travel on the New York City Transit as a really little boy just to attend synagogue on his own, even when his family wouldn't go. My faith life was mostly shaped by a fiercely passionate Jewish man who fell head over heels in love with Jesus. He loved that my parents gave me a Hebrew name, Yohana. He never used my nickname. Long after everybody else had reduced it to Joe, he always called me Johanna. I was the first baby he ever baptized, and he midwived my faith journey all the way through to marriage counseling, at which point he kind of squirmed and said it was really awkward to give marriage counseling to someone that felt like his daughter. Almost exactly a year ago, I had a dream about him. In it, I attended a celebration of the Jewish people. It was held in somebody's home, and one of this man's daughters had produced a film thanking those who had supported their family well, and our family featured very highly. In this dream, at one point, he found me in the crowd, and we threw our arms around each other and just kind of held on for a while. And the hug kind of held our entire 30 years of relationship inside of it. I lost touch with this man a while ago. The hug was everything. I no longer hold to replacement theology, but if I'm honest, I don't know what I hold to. With my eyes newly open to the prophetic and how the Bible reveals the double, triple fulfillment of many prophecies in that wondrous spiraling effect it seems to have. I can see that there's a plan for the Jewish people that hasn't yet been fulfilled. It stands out very starkly and obviously to me now. But my spirit warns that any of us who say we understand it completely are proud and unwise. Over a month ago, our little circle church held an evening of prayer around Israel. And while in prayer, I saw a vision of me standing with the father in the parable of the prodigal son. In it, I was the younger brother. I had dark hair, dark eyes, and I waited there with him, and we were peering into the darkness. It was like the sun was about to rise but hadn't yet risen, and we were waiting with such anticipation together for him. And then there he was, my older brother. Oh, I'd missed him. He taught me everything. He'd been a good big brother to me, and then he'd just gone away. He'd been away a long time. He hadn't wanted to come home until now. The vision ended just as we saw him, but I knew I would run, sprint towards him and throw my arms around him and say, "Welcome home. We should never have been apart. We belong together. Our family is together again." That's how I've been praying for the Jewish people ever since. I've been praying gratitude, like Paul tells us to, when he says we shouldn't forget that we've been handed down a great and precious gift, and we must never ever be proud, but remain humbly grateful. But I've also been praying kind of fiercely for a homecoming. Come home, big brother. And they will. I don't know when, but they will. Something isn't right with the way the story's being told right now about what's happening in Israel. I'm not about to unpack the specifics of that because I don't know. But it's the same knowing, the same recognition of falseness, the same discordant note being rung in my spirit that I heard over 4 years ago when stories started to spin about COVID. Something isn't right. 4 years ago, my mom came to me in a dream. In the dream, there was a waterfall of tiny round spheres in red and blue streaming from the ceiling. She had a very urgent air about her. And she told me we had to gather up both the red and the blue, and we had to blend them into a mixture to be imbibed. She wanted me to drink it, both the red and the blue. She wanted me to know that that was the only way I'd be able to see the truth, because there was truth in both the red and the blue, and there was deception in both the red and the blue. I knew God was drawing my attention specifically at that time to American politics, and to the fiery polarization that was taking place at that time. He didn't want me to pick a side. He wanted me to pick him. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And so I will never declare, when the news tells me to, that I will stand with Israel. Because by its very nature, that statement is meant to polarize. To say you stand with a particular group implies that you do not stand with the other one. And I think of that story where an angel appears right before a battle, and Joshua comes up to him and says, "Are you with us or with them?" And the angel says, "No." And so if you were to ask me, are you with the Jews or are you with the Palestinians? I would say no. I'm with Jesus. And I believe his heart is with all of them. It's with his Russian people, his Ukrainian people. It's with his American people that voted any number of ways. It's with my fellow Canadians who wore masks and who didn't. I stand with whoever he puts in my arms. I have a lot of really confusing thoughts and prophetic ideas about the Jew and the Gentile and how it all works and how it all fits and how it's all going to unfold. And I find that no matter where I turn, I'm being told on some level that it's not okay, some of these things that I think. There's a kind of shame. The church has a lot of very firm ideas about what you're supposed to think on any given subject, but where the Jews are concerned, it gets a little bit more charged. It seems higher stakes. And so recently I prayed out of a kind of desperation, "Abba, am I loving them well? Am I loving your Jewish people well?" And he showed me myself in the arms of my childhood Jewish pastor. And then in my arms, he showed me one of my best friends, a fiery Jewish woman who enriches my life in ways no one else does. His answer was yes, I'm loving them well. I don't have to understand everything that's going on to love them well. I don't have to stand one way or the other. I have to love. I need you to hear that. You just have to love. Last week in a vision, I was shown a thick wall. It was made of a pale, clay-like substance that isn't found here in my country. I knew it was a Middle Eastern wall, and I knew it was Jerusalem. And inset into the wall was a small door, but the door, it wasn't really a door. It was a trap. It looked like one of those trigger-sensitive doors that you find on animal traps. In this vision, I was training my daughter that if she tried to approach the door with thinking, with what she perceived to be the right words, proper thinking and reasoning, the door would snap shut. But then I led her into prayer. And with her heads bowed, I taught her to enter in through the Spirit, and I saw her pass right through the wall. She didn't even use the door. She didn't need to. She was able to pass right through the wall and enter into the city. And I heard within and without. Two things came to mind when I heard those words. The first is that the first sentence that crops up is about being surrounded by enemies. The enemy is within and without. The second is that term is related to a New Age concept, one that I have already spoken about, as above, so below. The full occult idea is as above, so below, as within, so without. It's the notion that you can manifest externally what is internal. There are reasons God wanted to draw me to an occult sentence, and I'm not going to get into it right now. But I will say it's just like him to use something that sounds scary and even evil to hammer home a truth. There's nothing beyond his reach. He can use whatever he wants. And he just wanted me to get clear on that principle, that the truth found in the Spirit is what will work its way out in the natural. What we see with our eyes and our senses in the natural, it lies to us. Our scientific age has taught us that you scan the externals, that which is without, and then you take inside yourself the truth that you learned from that. The Bible says otherwise. It is truth that is discerned spiritually, that is really true. And once that is prayed into, stood upon in faith, declared, it works its way out in the natural after that. He wanted me to know that about what's happening in Israel. We cannot trust what we're seeing with our eyes and hearing with our ears. That cannot be what dictates what truth is. We must be a praying people, and we must be in the Spirit when we ask Him, what's going on, Abba? What is happening here? Who is telling us the truth? Who isn't? And why? And Abba, what do you want from us? What do you want? There are enemies within the city gate and enemies without. We need you. The door on that wall was really little. It wasn't a normal-sized door. It spoke to the narrowing of the way the enemy is trying to funnel people into a certain direction. Over the centuries, we have seen the enemy take a very broad path. He offered us a whole pantheon of gods, for example, instead of the one true God. He permeated all through culture the idea that you do you, all roads lead to God. That's changing really, really quickly. We're starting to see that all the roads and doors of the enemy are starting to converge and narrow. We're now in the era of you will affirm this or else. And this is no different. There is a very specific set of narratives we're being told to believe about Israel. We are being funneled through this tiny little door like cows being herded into a pen. Beware. It's a trap. As with every narrow door that culture and media has tried to cram us through in the past few years. Question it. And if you're like me, you're not going to be able to do that very well from geopolitical knowledge. I don't have that. But I do know God's voice. I know what He's told me. I know the warning bells He sets off in my spirit. I know what He's given me permission to do and not do, say and not say, agree with or disagree with. I hear Him. He is the door that you enter through. Do not let news headlines dictate which door you go through. It's a trap. I always know He's going to provide me with just what I need from Scripture to confirm the part of His heart He's trying to convey to me when I'm delivering these words. And this time it came from 1 Corinthians 16. Be on guard. Stand firm in your faith. Act like mature men and women. Be courageous, be strong, and let everything you do be done in love. Be on guard, my friends. There are traps to the left and the right, above and below. Be on guard. And if you are going to stand, do not stand with one person over another. Do not stand with one people group over another. I beg of you, stand firm in your faith in Him. Be courageous, be strong. You're going to need it because you will be screamed at on every side as to what to believe, what to think, what to say, who to stand with. And above all, let everything you do be done in love. To those of you who don't like this message that I'm giving, I'm inviting you to tell me if you hear love in my voice or not. Because I tell you, I am brimming over with it. Hear the heartache and the longing that we be a people finally united. That we be a people that are no longer batted about like waves tossed on the sea. That we are no longer a people deceived and being corralled through the trapdoor of the enemy to our slaughter and to the destruction of our unity. Hear my love when I say be careful. Be on guard. He is the door, and only Him. If you want to interact with any of these episodes, if the Lord has spoken to you about similar things, then I really want to hear about it. This podcast has an Instagram account over at Mildly Prophetic. I'll put that in the show notes. If you hop over there, you can share the things you've seen and heard. You can ask me questions. Basically, you can add your breadcrumbs to mine. And if we gather them all up, then what a feast it'll be.